వస్తారు పని పీజీ చేసి
Settle down. Good morning. A warm and a hearty welcome to all of you. Before we commence the program, I request you all to stand up for the national anthem. Dr. Kulkarni, Mrs. Kulkarni, Professor Divakaran, Dr. Sarvate, faculty members and friends. I have great pleasure in welcoming you all to the Global Entrepreneurship Program lecture series. The GEP has been conceptualized by Mrs. Tarita Vakalkar Mehendale, Chairperson Indra Group of Institutes. The guiding philosophy in launching this program can be summarized as follows. Entrepreneurship is the engine of growth for a country. It is the vehicle through which jobs and wealth are created in a nation. The objective of the Global Entrepreneurship Program is to create awareness about entrepreneurial opportunities and to foster a spirit of entrepreneurship among today's youth so that they can aspire to be job creators and business owners at some point of time in their career. The program runs concurrently with the regular academic curriculum. It is partly based on instructor-led classroom teaching. This is supplemented by talks and experience sharing by eminent and accomplished entrepreneurs from the world of business and industry. Some of the prominent guest speakers in the GEP lecture series in 2003 were Dr. V. Kurian, the father of milk revolution; Dr. Sam Petroda, the father of telecom revolution; Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani, MD Hiranandani Group of Industries; Mr. R. Ravi Mohan, MD and CEO of CRISIL; Mr. Deepak Ghaisas, CEO iFlex Solutions, India Operations; Dr. Naren Jadhav, Principal Advisor, RBI. A few words about the Indra Group of Institutes will be in order at this juncture. Our mission is to provide top quality postgraduate education in the fields of business management, international business and information technology. Today, the Indra Group of Institutes boasts of 5 institutes with a student population of more than 4,000 from all over India. As part of our objective to enrich the learning experience at our institutes, we strongly strive for close industry-academy interface by way of seminars, conferences, CEU interactions, academic sponsorship of corporate events. Consequently, we are ranked among the top 30 B schools on the parameter of industry interface on an all-India basis. Once again, I welcome you all to the GEP lecture series. Now, I'd like to call my colleague Prashant, who will introduce our guest for today, Dr. Avinash Kulkarni.
Hey everyone. Honorable Dr. Avinash Kulkarni, Mrs. Kulkarni, respected faculty members, and dear friends. When you reach an obstacle, turn it into an opportunity. You have the choice. You can overcome and be a winner, or you can allow it to overcome you and be a loser. The choice is yours and yours alone. Go that extra mile that failure refuses to come, because it is far better to be exhausted from success than to be rested from failure. So friends, if you are looking for some inspiration in starting your own business, then look no further, because we are the most fortunate to have Dr. Kulkarni here with us. So let me share a brief profile of Dr. Kulkarni. Dr. Avinash Kulkarni is the chairman of 3 companies: Litex Electrical Private Limited, Litel Infrared System Private Limited, and Arclight Specialty Lamp Limited. He is a founder director of all 3 companies. He received BTech honors from IIT Bombay, PhD from University of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, and MBA from University of Rutherford, NJ, New Jersey. He worked for 8 years as a senior research engineer with Westinghouse Lamp Division in Bloomfield, New Jersey, United States of America. where he received a citation as inventor for getting 5 US patents. He is a recipient of the first prize of National Award as an outstanding SSI entrepreneur from the President of India. He is also a recipient of Distinguished Alumnus Award of IIT Bombay in 1983. Then he returned to India in November 1979 to be an entrepreneur. After 14 years stay in USA. He was two-term president 2002 to 2004 of ELCOMA, ELCOMA, Electric Lamps and Component Manufacturer Association, an apex body of rupees 3,000 crore of lighting industry in India. So friends, please put your hands together and give a warm applause to Dr. Kulkarni. Now, I would like to request Dr. Kulkarni to address the audience.
It's a great privilege for me to be here. I had come here last year and thoroughly enjoyed my interaction with you young people and the staff here. And I thank my friend Dilip Sarvate for giving me this opportunity once again this year. I'm going to share with you how I decided to become an entrepreneur and what prompted me to do so and what happened in the last 25 years. I'll just give a very brief review of it. I'll not confine myself only to success. There are some setbacks and failures also. I'd like to even touch upon them also. 40 years or some years ago when I graduated from IIT Bombay, the last thing perhaps on my mind was to become an entrepreneur. In those days, these things were just not done. The people, if you had a good college degree, good engineering degree, you didn't start your business. It was just unheard of. Anyway, after 2 years of stint in Calcutta with the student company, I got a research fellowship at the University of Pennsylvania. University of Pennsylvania, as many of you may not know, is a parent of Wharton School. Wharton School belongs to University of Pennsylvania. Somehow our business school got all the limelight and glory, and rest of the university did not. It's somewhat unfortunate. There I got research fellowship, full-fledged, very good fellowship, and I was allowed to skip masters, and I did doctorate in a matter of only 3 years. And then I landed with first job there. And when I started working, I realized the work environment was so nice and so free and so stimulating, and the reward for scientific work was so much. You get so much recognition because of that. That if I realized that with this kind of experience and with this kind of expectation, I can never move back to India and do the similar kind of work there. So this was always in the back of my mind, that research is fine, and in America I stayed there for 14 years, and all 14 years of those were in R&D. R&D also happens to be the farthest end of business from the customer. If you call customer is the front end of business, which is marketing, R&D is probably the remotest. And that's where I was stuck in some lab somewhere in a corner, never met a customer. So that's how my background was there. So something dawned on me that the only way I could probably go back to India is to go back to India as an employee, and that too in a government organization, because if you are a researcher, you have 9 out of 10 jobs or 95 out of 100 jobs are in government. It's going to be tough making it through, and whether I will be able to assimilate in the culture there after seeing the professional freedom which goes along working as a multinational in America. Every year you attend 2 international conferences, you present papers, your papers get reviewed, and you get a lot of recognition from your scientific and your fellow engineers. So that kind of thing to expect back in India is not possible, is asking for too much. So I knew that I had to create my own work environment, and the only way I could do is to do something on my own. And having realized that, then I said I know nothing about the business. My parents were teachers. My father retired as principal of College of Education. My mother was also teacher in high school. And so I realized that teaching was not challenging enough to me, although I loved teaching. And maybe in the retrospect I realized if I started some education institute, I might have done even much better than what I am doing as an industry. because I remember Symbiosis took off about the same time, and there is no comparison performance of Litex Electricals and Symbiosis. So education, I missed this opportunity. If I had known that there was so much opportunity here. But you know what happens, you only stick to your own domain knowledge. You don't want to dabble into something, at least to begin with, in which you don't know. I always believe that I'm going to start something in some area where I know much better than my competition, because that's the only edge I think I have. Rest of the business skill, acumen, I just don't know whether I have it. So it is good to confine yourself to what you know best. So not knowing where to start to prepare for business, I joined an MBA program in Fairleigh Dickinson University in Rutherford campus. And this was in the evening, in the daytime I used to work for Westinghouse. In the evening I used to go to this business school. I finished my MBA. And there I realized that although they may not teach you entrepreneurship per se, but just being in those classrooms, attending those courses, completely changes your outlook. Some of the things which are happening every day around you, which you never notice, you start noticing them. Interest rates, what new product is being marketed, is being launched, what are the marketing strategies of different companies. And this kind of information, unless you are sensitive to this, unless you become, your antennas start picking up these things, and that's what happens when you take an MBA program. Your just sheer awareness of business happening makes you gain more knowledge. And I remember that after joining MBA program, I never missed that American magazine Business Week. I never missed a single issue of it. I always read it. And that's where you start learning more about business. It's not just the classroom. You're reading outside the classroom, and you get better tuned for business information, which otherwise you just ignore. So with this, I started tinkering with ideas, what should I do? And you always think of what you know best, if you want to proceed in that direction. But first I was a scientist with Kennecott Copper, so I was thinking about making copper powder in India. Then Westinghouse, my project was making tungsten powder from ore. So some of these things, I was thinking, how can I translate this into some workable projects in India? Then finally, about a year or two later, after working in Westinghouse, I stumbled on a product which I thought could be a perfect product. It was a halogen lamp. A small lamp of the size of this lamp, of this pen, costing about that time $10. I thought this looks like an attractive proposition, but that time I knew nothing about the lamp, and actually I was supposed to work full time on my extraction of tungsten from ores. But this thing fascinated me, and then I started thinking about this, and I came up with new ideas how to make this lamp. And I wrote a proposal to my boss and to the division manager. He said, this is the way this lamp could be made in new fashion. And so they said, okay, go ahead. They were very open that way. And the ideas which I had were really quite successful, and which led to about 2 to 3 patents for my employer, Westinghouse. And then I thought that with this invention, it so much drastically simplifies the manufacturing process that maybe I could do something back home. And then there was a colleague of mine who was working in manufacturing department, Mahendra Shah. So we started meeting off and on. And he also was like-minded. He also wanted to come back to India. And so the one thing which we had in common amongst both of us was how can we come back to India and maybe we can use this as a vehicle. We started meeting monthly and then fortnightly and subsequently even weekly. And so slowly the commitment was increasing. And this is where I find that if you have somebody to share your ideas and with some common goal, it helps to keep the interest going, because it's a very long process from a concept in your mind to setting up a plant 10,000 miles away is a very long process. So with these meetings, also I realized subsequently that the other 2 projects, copper powder and tungsten powder, were not really, after joining the MBA, I realized that the value added is not enough. And the copper and tungsten are very high value items, and there is a commodity price fluctuation, And if this up and down of commodity price fluctuation can wipe out your margin any day. And so you are left with a very high uncertainty factor. Again, margin being small, unless you operate to 70–80% of capacity, you don't start making money. But if your product has got value added maybe factor of 3, means your material cost is say 20 and your final product is you are selling for 20% and 1 rupee say, and 20% as material cost, then even at a small capacity utilization, 30–40%, you can still make good money in this. So this was another factor which helped me to consolidate our idea on sticking to this halogen lamp. Then we started meeting frequently, and we hired the services of a chartered engineer and a chartered accountant. And we got a market survey done through what was CECOM that time. CECOM is still there, but doesn't do this kind of things now. They did a market survey for us, which was partly paid by them. And the market survey came back that the only manufacturer in India was Philips. So we would be the only second manufacturer. So opportunities, we have given a very rosy picture. Yes, there's a good product. So having decided, and then where do I set it up? I'm from Indore, so I wanted to set it up in Devas, but somehow I felt that that place is too, I had to be near Bombay. And then we set up, we also bought a land in Goa in which we had to forego. I also looked into going to Baroda. Since my wife is from Calcutta and I'm from Indore, so really Pune is not the first choice. But after the great and good analysis, I realized that being near Bombay and not being yet in Bombay, the best place was Pune. And we never regretted that. So having finalized, having zeroed on Pune, then we started doing all kinds of application for that time there are so many formalities for importing capital goods. You had to, it took about 6 to 8 months to get the import license. And what was the CIF value of the consignment? 4 lakh rupees. For even such paltry amounts, you had to go through such struggle through these formalities. Then to get the loan from MSFC, there was another 6 months to get there. But this was done while I was away. This was the chartered accountant, and these are the people who did all these things. So when I arrived here in November 1979, some major formalities like MSFC loan sanction, booking of shed, and even SSR registration, all these formalities were done. But MSFC loan sanction is still easier. The disbursement is horrendously complicated. There are so many, there are 68 clauses. And until you satisfy all 68, they don't give you a single paisa. So it took me 10 months of full-time work to get the first loan disbursement, to get the possession of the shed, W134S block in MIDC Bhosri. So once even then, I said I still saved 1 year or a year and a half, because if you had taken a piece of land, buying a land itself could take you a year, and then title clearance and all, then NOC, and those things are totally avoided when you buy a plot in an industrially developed area like MIDC, Bhosri. So after the shed was ready, but there are a lot of construction to be done. We got going. The Mahendra Shah was again still in America. He sent all the machinery, and we imported that. And another after my coming here, about a year and a half later, Mahendra Shah also joined, and we got going slowly. This machine was picked up from really junkyards, because if you go and try to buy machinery from organized sector, they're always talking millions of dollars, and our budget was like $10,000–20,000. So our budget was very short. So it took a long time to get this machinery going, because we had to adapt and change, and so it took about 6 months to get the first lamp out. But once we started rolling, there was no looking back, because the only other competitor was Philips, and Philips we could always run circles around them because of the price we could offer, and we had the quality which was comparable to Philips. And so then there were 8 other companies who did not have halogen lamp in their product line. So they all lined up to get this lamp. So our marketing was not our problem. So we started with Kalpana lamp, then Bajaj Electrical, Mysore lamp, ECE, Sylvania, Surya Roshni. One by one, all of them lined up, and they became our brands. By late 80s, we were ahead of Philips, because Philips only had 1 brand, we had about 8 brands. So how things change, there are no permanent competitors, there are no permanent enemies. Now our biggest customer is Philips. 1996, Philips came to us. Would you make a digital lamp for us? I said, why not? And we were quite pleasantly surprised. I thought they thought we were enemies, but they didn't think this way. And now Philips and Litex has a very, very close, very warm relationship. Their people come visit us once a month. Every week we send them our quality report. Their quality systems are impeccable. You know, MNCs, there are a lot to learn from them. And I have worked with all the lamp companies in India, no exception. Osram, GE, Bajaj, Crompton, Mysore, everyone, EC, I mean, half of them are dead anyway. But the quality systems of Philips are just superb. And we have gained a lot as a company by our sheer association with them. Anyway, I'm digressing. So in the late, up to what time was it supposed to? What, 30, 40? Yeah. Question answer. Yeah. So we were very well established. By mid-80s, our halogen lamp for floodlighting was very well established. But we saw another opportunity on the horizon, photocopier. Photocopier lamps are made only in Japan. And so photocopier lamps, we did not know the technology because that technology is only in Japan. Because if you know, all the photocopiers, low-end photocopiers come from Japan. Canon, Toshiba, Ushio, all the brand names except Xerox. Xerox also has a Fuji Xerox, which is the low-end copier of Xerox, it also comes from Japan. So top 10 out of 10 photocopiers in the world are coming from Japan. So this technology is in the hands of Ushio and Toshiba. So we started developing this technology on our own here. And with the backing from Modi Xerox that time, what it was called. If they imported a lamp from Japan, it cost them 400-500 rupees. We could give them at less than half the price. And the same quality. It had to be same quality because the name Xerox was there. So this was a great exercise and great challenge for us to start with really very fundamental research and developing product and to attain a perfection so as to be called a Xerox lamp. Some of the product we got into quite easily, but photo exposure lamp took us 10 years to get that. But in the meantime, we always had this roadside vendor copier who were lapping up our lamp because our lamp is still 95% good. Unless they are 100% good, they are not going to get accepted by Xerox. So Xerox, our relationship started in 1985 with heater lamp, which we perfected in a matter of 1 year. But the other more copier lamp, photocopier lamp took another 10 years to perfect, and now it's a very, very important lamp for us. So, but with the copier lamp going great guns, this became our mainstay of our company. And throughout 90s, the company really ran on copier lamps. There were Toshiba copiers made by CL in Dehradun. There were Sharp copier being made by Koran Business Machine. There were BPL was manufacturing some other brand. So there are but 6, 7 copier, and they are all with us. And we thought things are going great guns. Late 80s and 90s. By mid-90s, things started going something sour. As soon as the market was opened up for free import of anything, all this marginal small copier manufacturers started importing this. And their need for that lamp was gone. So suddenly what was our star product suddenly started declining. And this year, what we were selling in 1994, we are now selling only 25% of that. The only customer left is Xerox. The rest of them all have walked away from manufacturing. So this is how product life cycle. India is quite different. It depends on the policy and the imports. And Chinese imports have been a great threat because of the cleverness, or rather say, I would say, lack of transparency of our traders. They can under-invoice something. The lamp is $1.90. They invoice at 19 cents. So they pay 1/10 the import duty. Now you have paid the import duty on all the raw materials, all the excise duty, all sales tax. You just cannot compete with this imported product. Imported product is not paid. He has only paid 1/10 the import duty. They have not paid excise. They have not paid sales tax. And these are all through an informal channel. They got all of the price. So there again you find that organized sector customer are your best bet because they are not going to touch this product coming from informal channel and they want to be sure of the quality. So both these Xerox stuck with us and we have copier lamp, although it's not it's number 4 product right now, but it was very good product for almost a decade for us. Then we got into, in 1994 we wrote a proposal to develop some laser pumping lamps. And that seemed like a very far-fetched thing. And this whole thing came about from America. I had gone to see a company in Silicon Valley. And they say that, I said, we want to develop this laser pumping lamp. He said, you know, this is a good opportunity because I have a purchase order from India for 100 lamps. But I can't supply it because India has not signed NTPC, what do you call it? Nuclear. Yeah. So I said, well, that's a very good opportunity. So we developed this whole technology funded by government, and now it has taken a long time to perfect this technology. Now we are selling these lamps. Each lamp is like 5,000, 6,000 rupees, and this is for laser pumping. Now a derivative of this, what you call a spin-off of this technology, is a short of xenon lamp, which is used for projection in movies. Like if you go to any of this now multiplex, the picture quality is dazzling. This is the heart of this is a short of xenon lamp. We are developing that, and this year we will launch this product. Each lamp is 35,000 rupees each. So we see a very good prospect for this line. So some lines are declining. We have to continuously reinvent and introduce new products. On the other hand, the floodlighting with which we started the company has, in terms of dollar, earlier 1982 when we were selling the lamp, we were selling it $10 a piece. We were selling it 100 rupees and that time dollar was 10 rupees. Now we are selling this lamp at 30 rupees when dollar was 45 rupees. So from $10, our realization has come to 70 cents, 60 cents. This is the kind of price erosion. Unthinkable. And how do you sustain your business with this kind of price erosion? And when practically all the components which go into this are imported, how do you keep reducing cost? This was the biggest challenge we faced besides quality management. How do you keep cutting the cost? And then again you find that labor laws are such that you can't employees which have become permanent, how do you motivate them? Because you cannot take them, you cannot check them out. So there's a lot of management challenges all over the place. And now I'm very proud to say that earlier in 1982-83, if you made 10 lamps a day, we were profitable. Now unless I make 5,000 lamps a day, I don't make money. This is how the economics of scale has changed. And quality of this 5,000 lamp is better than what used to be worth 10 lamps which you made at a time. And this is again drivers are like Philips, a very demanding customer, which you don't sometimes hate them because they are, at times you feel that they are such a stickler, but that's what pays you in the long run because they get the best out of you. We had another product range called infrared lamp, and this lamp was it's like somebody dressed up and nowhere to go. This lamp was we created, but there was no market for it. So 1987 we promoted another company called Lightel Infrared Systems Private Limited to create market for this, to make heating systems using infrared lamps. So this was my partner Mahendra Shah became the managing director of that, and this company was in the adjoining, fortunately the adjoining plot was empty and we just took that, and it's almost double the plot, double the size of Litex plot, and we got going there. We got a really head start there because one of my old classmates and who was vice president of Kirloskar Consultant, I managed to convince him that he should join us. First, I had to work on him. I said, consultant, you please do the market survey for this product. He says, how much is the charge? I'm talking 1986. He said, 25,000 rupees should be okay. So we gave out a check to him, Kirloskar Consultant. And when he came up with the finding, he says, good prospect that within 3 years this could be a 1 crore company. So very good. I said, now next question, how about joining us? So he says, okay, let me think. He completed his 20 years, so he was sure of getting his pension and everything. So, and what happens basically in the large organization, people have very good ideas and they do not get enough opportunity to execute them. Some bureaucracy, and they have some pent-up frustration also. I wish I could get his chance. And he knew that with this group, he will have his say, and whatever he wants to do, he will be able to do. So Pramod joined us Pramod Singapore joined us as an executive director with Mahendra Shah, and I continued chairman of this company also. And there was no looking back. Pramod was a very, very savvy engineer, and he took this company. It has turned just with 2 lakhs rupees of investment in '87. We are the sales of this company are about 4 crores this year, and profits are. There's a very good margin here in this business. While lamp, because of the constant threat of China, Philips has got 23 factories in China. They have got several lamp factories. So when they buy a lamp from me in India, they always have to tell me what is the Chinese price. Unless I match that, I don't have the order. So I have to fight every year what is going to be price reduction this year. There is no question of price escalation. Can I get away with 5% reduction this year? Just to give an idea, when Philips started to come lamp from us in 1996, we are getting 68 rupees per lamp. This year it's 29 rupees. And all the materials is imported. How do you do that? Whole lot of exercise. You travel to China, you go to all kinds of factories there, because China, if you can't join, if you can't fight them, join them. So all good, so bulk of our material is sourced from China. But China is full of booby traps. So you have to find good suppliers there. So you have to comb China and find out who are the good suppliers. And I'll just do one example of one material, quartz tube. You're buying from GE at $18 a kilogram A4B Cleveland. I buy same material from China, from China for $4.50 a kilogram CIF Bombay. Less than 1/4. And just 2 months ago we said we want some reduction in price because Philips is really making hue and cry, they want price reduction further. Okay, they give 16% cost reduction. So now it's $4 a kilogram. So this is how it is. Unless you, China is your biggest enemy, but you can't survive without them also in this situation. So you have to create bonds with China. For next month again, I will be going to China for exploring tungsten sources. So what we started with the bread and butter of our product, of our company, is still 95% of the lamps made of lead lighting lamps, which I said is 30 rupees a piece. That doesn't give you much margin. The material cost only 20 rupees. Labor and everything comes, and there's really not much margin left. It keeps the whole factory busy, but then your margins come from infrared lamp, or photocopier lamp, or laser pumping lamps, from sun gun lamps, some other products, overhead projector lamps. So you have two, we call regular flood lighting lamp and value-added lamps. So these value-added lamps are the ones which carry the company, and the more we focus and grow in the value-added lamp, better will be our margins. So without going into any further details of what happened and how it happened, I just had drawn some out of my experience, maybe answer to some of the FAQs, frequently asked questions. I have jotted down some 15, 20 points. I will just go through them and then I will finish my presentation. First and foremost was once you are settled in America with comfortable with green card and everything, it takes nothing short of obsession to come back here. At least that time, when the infrastructure here was zero, it took years for you to build up. It's not like this, you can come to Hindewadi and next day start set up computer and start running, buzzing, getting the company on. I'm somewhat jealous of what these new entrepreneurs are. Their opportunities are much better. In our time, things like this didn't exist. So unless you had, at our times at least, unless you are obsessed, okay, I have to come back, I want to come back, and I will make it happen. And anything less than that, you would go back. Because it was just too demanding and frustrating initially. I think maybe this some of the advice meant for NRIs, except for Bombay and Delhi, other cities, you can really get a decent accommodation for what, around 20-25 lakh rupees. In Bombay and Delhi, you can't. If you are in constant search for a project to return to India, to start a venture, you will locate one. Because really how, if you are, it's like you're training your antenna. If you're constantly looking out for this, you will see some new ideas. SICOM was very helpful to us in market survey, but SICOM promotes units only in backward areas. So which I find is not of interest to a high-tech unit. Because if you need something, if my machine goes wrong, I can find so many experts in Pune to fix it. And that's what happened. One of our machines, spot welder, which I had brought from America, it conked out. And so my friend here repaired it. He says, you know, Avinash, do you mind if I copy this design? He says, you can copy this? I said, I'll give the first order for this copy. So this is how you develop other entrepreneurs and you make your own expansion much easier and you consolidate your own position. It's like a synergy. So if you are in a backward area, you don't have such facilities, you don't have such expertise which you don't have one with you. I feel that unless one has a good backing in India, small scale industries are a better platform to launch. Again, the value addition and the product which you launch should be substantial. I indicated 20%, I think there's a mistake there. It should be at least 100%. If it is 50%, cost is 50, value addition should be 50 at least, if not higher. Select a product for which demand has been created. You know, when you are a small outfit and you have got a very ambitious product to launch nationwide, you're asking for trouble. Actually, metal halide lamp, which are very closely related in Westinghouse, and that was the product I knew most. But I did not start it here. I started it in year 2000 in Arclight, because the product was not launched in India. And Philips has launched halogen lamp, and so halogen lamp was launched. So when I came here, there are 8 companies which wanted to buy it from me. But if I want to take a new product like that and try to teach the whole country how to use this lamp, it is not within the capability of a small scale industry. MIDC sheds are quite shabby, but considering the time they save in terms of buying the land and doing water connection and electric connection, all those things are much easier in MIDC shed. So they are preferable to buying land, freehold land, and getting going. The loans that time, of course, now MSFC, etc. are now dying institutions. But we found that loans like institution like MSFC was very good. And we also found that, my experience is that, do not take term loan and working capital loan from the same organization. So that gives you some flexibility. Otherwise, if your term repayment has come, if you are taken from bank term loan as well as working capital loan, as soon as the term loan installment is due, they just take the money out of your account. You have no say. So it's good to separate these two, so you have some breather space sometime. Again, always get loans for fixed capital goods, because if you buy capital goods yourself, the rest of the items, like there's so much of startup cost. For them, there are no loans available. So you save your money for other expenses which are incurred, for which marketing cost, or for a lot of running before you start making production, the periodic cost. There are no loans available for that. So it's good to buy, good to get financing for your fixed assets. One is to develop finesse in dealing with officers and other officers of other institutions, and also in general, to be an entrepreneur, you have to develop a finesse of dealing with people. Some officers are, particularly government officers, are very difficult to deal with. It's just not the bribes. You know, bribes are sort of I would say, still overrated thing. One can get around with very minimal and sometimes it's unavoidable, you have to. But by and large, if you just start throwing money, you'll go bankrupt also. You could be, you have to make sure that you very judiciously part with something like that. And I found that it is not a major issue at all. But so again, you have to develop a judgment. Where to yield, where not to yield. Like some of the excise officers to seal an export consignment. Just yesterday I got a call. He is demanding a such and such money. Avinash, how much do you do? How much do you pay? I said, we pay nothing. I said, if you want to check, talk to my director, fellow director. And he guided him how to avoid all these things. So there are some ways to get around it, but you have to develop this little finesse. I feel that private limited organization is definitely better than partnership because it's more transparent, more transferable. Talking to banks, when I came here, when I wanted to work with working capital loan, the SBI said, very good, you keep all your NRI funds. I had some, at that time, some $30,000-40,000 I had transferred here. That time rate exchange rate was only 8 rupees. It was not 45. So they said, okay, you put this money, against this we will give you loan. Listen, I'm buying a flat next month and all this money will go away, then what, will you withdraw the loan? He said, no. Unless you keep this fund forever, we will not give you loan. Well, it is such a ridiculous thing to do. You put the money and then take loan against that money. I said, do you think you are underestimating my intelligence? I said, okay, thank you. So I went and talked to some other banker who was much more open and he realized what I was talking. So getting a right banker is again a matter of judgment and also a matter of luck also, because that manager who is there may change next year also. One book which I really relished reading for years and was bedside reading for me in the 70s when I was sort of preparing to be an entrepreneur. As the Entrepreneur's Manual by Richard White. It's a Chiltern publication. I don't know whether it's still in publication or not, but this is a very good book, and I really derived a lot of inspiration from this book. Now, I told you about Litex and Litel. In 1996, we promoted a public limited company called Arclight Specialty Lamps Limited, and we had lot of problems initially, and now we are coming again after good 8 years of struggle, we are in the profitable range. And I thought that I had become a good entrepreneur, but I realized that there is nothing like that. Every enterprise is a new chapter, and whatever you have learned is good, but that may not be good enough. So this Arclight has demanded every bit of what we had, not just myself, but our group of 4 directors, which includes Shirish Karkare, Raju Lokapur, my younger brother Ravi, and it has been an uphill stance, but we will prevail, and we can see the turnaround. And so, now all I like to say in conclusion, that this decision was taken maybe 30 years ago to become an entrepreneur. And it took last 25 years I've been in India implementing this. From one company, second company, third company, all kinds of different experiences. Also, it has been the biggest challenge for me. It would have been much easier for me to become a teacher because that was my comfort zone. And I still love to teach. Whenever I get an opportunity, I never miss it. I love to teach, especially physics, chemistry, mathematics. Anyway, so that's, I still find some student whosoever wants to learn, I'm always there to help them. I think entrepreneurship is a great career, very rewarding, and I challenge you to take this up. Thank you very much.
Good morning, sir. Sir, firstly I want to thank you, thanks a lot. Because we got so many things to learn. As a new entrepreneur to start what things are actually needed, we got to learn so many things. But But sir, I want to ask you one thing, that in the whole speech, like one thing I observed, that whoever enemies came in your way, like Philips and Xerox, who are already established in the market, you started converting your enemies into friends and customers. So can I say that is one of the quality of yours which helps you in the long run success of your business?
Now, Philips and Philips may be in that category because they were competing with us for 10 years. And when we became bigger than them in halogen lamp area, then they went to someone else. They called like Phoenix in Noida. And then they were not completely satisfied with them. So they came back to us. And then, of course, when a customer like Philips comes, who can double your orders overnight, of course you are going to welcome. And there is no question of being permanent enemies if you are on the Philips. And we realize that being with Philips is going to lend a lot of credibility to the company, and it's going to move up in quality scale. And we just demanding customer, you may not like, but he is one of your best friends, because he is going to make you go up in the quality and in productivity, because they are going to challenge you in every way, and they are coach you also there. We have a weekly report going about how many lamps we produce, what was the rejection, why did we get such a rejection. Such detailed inquiry they do. They may not be reading it, but it makes us read this and take notice of this. So it is a. I feel that Philips is in the category which was a competitor, became our friend. But Moses Xerox was a friend from day one, because they wanted a domestic supplier, because the cost of Japanese lamp was very, very high, and they could see that this company can do it. So one lamp, which was a heater lamp, was approved right away. The second lamp took us a long time to develop, but I still feel that for product development, the biggest helping hand is a good customer, a committed customer who wants it from you, who will do all kinds of testing for you, who will go out of the way to accommodate you for their own benefit. They are not being charitable, but you need such people to work with. The best customer is your best bet to succeed. Thank you.
The question: how vital the role of technology is in the constant development of the business?
And you have to keep widening your technology base. Now you saw that floodlighting lamp with which we started the company, which was our first star product, with which we sort of went ahead of Philips. Now that time I was getting $10 a piece. Now I am getting 60 cents a piece. All the material is imported. So if I had kept only that product with me, we would have been gone out of business 10 years ago. So since we developed photocopier lamp, we developed infrared lamp, we developed laser pumping lamp, now we are going to launch a short-arc xenon lamp. Unless you have a technology upgradation or a new technology development as a part of your regular activity, the company's future may be in serious doubt. Because just by sheerly, you can take some different route also, that you will just become a low-cost producer of something. Like we could have become very low-cost producer of a halogen lamp, red lighting halogen lamp. But then your margins are going to be very small, and sometimes the product itself becomes obsolete in what you do. So that you don't have protection from your side. So the answer to the question: yes, technology development is very vital. All the 4 companies with which I am associated. My younger brother's company called LK Chemicals is also, I'm director there. All these 4 companies, Litex, Litel, Arclight, LK, I have all the lack of technology. So all the 4 companies here with which I am associated are recognized R&D institutions.
Before you know, Avinash can recall, we had a heated argument some years back whether technology comes first or market comes first. I don't know whether you remember. Okay? Because I am a student of marketing, so I used to say it's not mere R&D but marketing R&D. Because he made a mention that they developed a particular product and there were no takers. Now, do you still hold the same view that technology comes first and market comes later? Okay? Or have you changed your view that it is the customer you identify first, understand the requirement, and then develop the technology to meet that?
That a good businessman always operates on OPM, that is other people money, maybe the shareholders, the lenders. According to you, how an aspiring entrepreneur can master this art?
Except for the last venture, which is Arclight, where we went public. Other two ventures till year 1996, the first 15, 16 years, we were private limited. So the money resources were really our own savings. But if you, as I told you in case of Light Year, we got 2 lakh rupees, and now this year the sales are going 4 crore rupees. There was no extra infusion of funds thereafter. So there, in these two companies, of course, it's our own money, which has grown with the time. Arclight, yes, we went to public. We were in a stage of, we also went to venture capitalists. We have used all kinds of funds, all kinds of sources to stay afloat, and we have to see, nobody is going to put money in your company unless you put it. So our NRI friends are willing to say, they have great faith in us. But you see, if you want me to put 100 rupees, $100, you put $25. And their pockets are a lot deeper. And what it ended up is the last 10 years, whatever money I have saved and whatever I have put up everything in my company. So it's easy to say that you can play with others' money, but others are also quite smart. Unless you are putting the money from your side, or you have some way of hoodwinking, which I have not learned. So unless those investors see your financial commitment also, they will not put the money also. So answer is that it is not so easy. At least I have not learned how to do that. I don't want to learn also.
As you said, when you start your company, that time India's infrastructure is really zero. How to manage all of the societal interface and this type of challenging. And one of the big challenges of your company, that is Philips in front of you. How to manage that challenge?
Opportunity. I look upon Philips, because if Philips has not created demand for halogen lamp, my company will not even get started. See, as I said, you can't be too innovative in a product. If you launch something which nobody knows, how are you going to educate? Philips has already educated people about halogen lamps. They had put full-page ad and half-page ad, so everyone knows about halogen lamp. So when I start making halogen lamp, already 10 companies lined up to buy my product. So I don't see this as an obstacle. In fact, this is an opportunity, and in the end, again, Philips has become a big opportunity for us, because out of the 100 lamps we are manufacturing, 90 are going to Philips in the floodlighting lamp. So that way, I don't...
You to come back to India after having a well-settled life in America, and do you think there are a lot more Indians based in America who actually want to do the same thing now?
What you call as your, what you consider is success. If your definition of success is having 2 cars, comfortable bungalow, nice mansion in the suburb, and with all the amenities of life as your success, then I think then you will not obviously come back. Because here, after you chuck away a job, where you are even as a scientist, I was in the top 10% of the bracket in terms of talent. So when you give up such a job and come here, and you are on the street actually. And but
the Philips was your biggest competitor, and you changed your biggest competitor to the biggest consumer. What was your competitive edge or competitive advantage you had at that time and you have now?
Late 80s, when we sort of overtook Philips, their MRP for halogen lamp was 430 rupees. You know what is their MRP right now? It is 99 rupees. From 430 rupees, the MRP has become 99. Philips could never do this kind of cost reduction on their own. Because they have marketing infrastructure, they have manufacturing, their salary levels, and the whole thing is so high cost. They could never done it. And they realize that. They also are looking, in fact, you will be surprised, lamps is the one which they are very big factory in Pali factory in Chandigarh, near Chandigarh, and they have got a big factory in Vadodara. And these are the only two huge factories which they have for lamp manufacturing. The rest electronics is completely outsourced.
So what is the right time to diversify?
Once you know that you have got, you are a good entrepreneur, maybe then you can dabble into other fields also. I have not done that. I will stick to my domain knowledge. If somebody asks, I did do that, and maybe I paid price for it also. Say in 1988, we got a business opportunity in the form of TV tube reconditioning. Now, TV tube reconditioning is very similar to lamp making. Like you cut the gun, the back, you cut the gun, you fuse a new gun, you evacuate, and you bake, and then you refill with getter. The whole process is very analogous to lamp making. So somebody showed me a plant available in Singapore for $20,000. When I looked at the equipment, I said, this equipment at this price is a steal. I said, can you get it going? I said, listen, this is I can definitely get it going, but I don't want to get into this. But he said, look, unless you join me as a partner, I will not do it. So we said, okay, we got sucked into that, and with 40% equity we took. And I went to Singapore a few times, I looked at that machine, and we brought the machine here. We started manufacturing reconditioning picture tubes.
As you and your company are actively involved in imports, the question I have is, if you look at the engineering equipment imports, there is a patent protection for say 14 years. But if you look at the overall composition of these imports, we are seeing that the majority of the components we are importing, they are patent expired. So what I would like to know is it because of the cost, or is it because of the habit that we have, like a trend of importing products, or is it because of attraction to anything foreign, like a foreign product is superior? Also, another question is, what is the scope of, like if I want to become an entrepreneur, what is the scope of manufacturing patent expired products in India?
After the expiry of patent, the cost reduction takes place in so many different ways. So although some, like what you are saying, patent on halogen lamp had expired when we started manufacturing. Halogen lamp patent dates to 1959, the original GE patent. So when we started manufacturing in 1982, patent had already expired, 81 patent had already expired. But
very high. And we have got some very big names like the Tatas, the Birlas, Reliance. But if we compare these companies on a global front, we don't stand a chance in comparison to other multinational companies. So what's the reason? What's the reason that that's holding the Indian companies? Why is Indian companies not that big as comparison to companies from Japan or companies from the US?
Very earlier, now you will see things changing very rapidly. Bharat Forge is about, what, 40 years old now? 35 years old? Now it really shot up only after liberalization. When Indian economy became very transparent, export-import was encouraged, and now Bharat Forge is going around the world acquiring firms in Germany, America, China. Same thing is happening to many companies now. Mahindra tractor. Mahindra is going to become tractor number one, and has already tractor number one. It's going to be. Their whole strategy is that way, and make it happen. So earlier in the whole gamut of things, before 91, that the kind of taxation we had, and the wealth tax we had, and protected market where people just grab
the capital cost, initial cost. There is no running cost. Whereas if you look at the LCD projectors, there's a capital cost and there's a huge running cost.
Heat density, and they are made with reflectors, gold-plated reflectors, intensely water and air. You know why? Because each square meter of these reflectors, these what we call cassettes,
you, sir. Now, I would now request Dr. Dilip Sarvate to propose the vote of thanks.
I think most of the students here have not listened to me or met me earlier, because when I got down from the car, 2 students approached me, "Welcome, Dr. Kulkarni." And when I came up on the 4th floor, another 2 came and asked me, "May we know your good name, please?" Okay, so I said, "I'm Anthony Gonzalez." As Dr. Kulkarni rightly said, last 30 years I have been dabbling in the area of entrepreneurship development. Maybe in last 30 years I might have interacted with more than 25,000 entrepreneurs, and almost every week I am delivering a talk on entrepreneurship. But then when I meet the management students, most of them I find very confused about their career. They want to know, after PGDM or MBA, what shall we be doing? So I give them 3 options. One is you can become an entrepreneur. Second, if you don't want to become entrepreneur, because I know 90% of the students here would not be interested in becoming entrepreneur. Okay? As he rightly said, you will be interested in a cushy job, a nice designation, okay, and the paycheck on the first of the day. But then, still everybody will have a dream to follow, right? Then what is the option? And that second option is you can become intrapreneur. Dr. Kulkarni did not mention, I thought he will be praising me because the book I wrote, second book,